Bob enjoyed his bike rides. It was the highlight of his weekend. Every Saturday afternoon he'd cycle along the old canal, the canal that had been closed for years and had been resurfaced. It was his gateway to the countryside. He could leave the city behind. And today he was enjoying it just as much as ever. As he cycled along, he saw a shoe. It was a new shoe, a child's shoe. And he thought to himself, some young lad's going to get into trouble for losing his shoe like that. So he picked it up, he put it into his rucksack, thinking that it would be easy enough to find out who it belonged to. He could put that in the paper, maybe even take it along to the local school. When he returned home, he took it out of the rucksack and put it into the cupboard for safekeeping. He was awoken from a pleasant dream at just after midnight by the sound of a banging and thumping from downstairs. He went downstairs cautiously, thinking who could it be at this time of night, but it seemed to be coming from inside the kitchen. And he thought, burglars. So arming himself with a trusty stick, he entered the kitchen and switched on the light. There was no one there. He glanced around. But there, on the table, was the shoe. The child's shoe that he'd put into the cupboard earlier. He must have taken it out, he thought. Put it back into the cupboard, went back up to bed, settled down, and off he went into his dreams. He was awoken again at a little past 1. The banging and the clattering was much louder this time, and fearfully he grabbed his stick and made his way downstairs. He opened the door of the kitchen, switched on the light. Nothing there. But again his glance fell on the shoe, back on the table. Now he was concerned because he thought somebody was in the house playing tricks on him, so he searched every single room, but no, there was no one there. He didn't go back to bed. He sat in the kitchen looking at the shoe. He sat for considerable time. It was daylight, and he made his decision. He'd never been one for church, didn't even know if he believed in God. But he had a thought at the back of his mind that maybe, just maybe, the thing to do was to go and see the local priest. He'd known him as a child, when he had to go to church, but he hadn't seen him for years. Wasn't sure of his reception. He went to the Mass that morning. He sat quietly at the back, and when it was over, he managed to catch the eye of the priest. They chatted for a while. Bob told him all about the circumstances of finding the shoe and about what had been happening overnight. He got the shoe in his bag, and he took it out and he showed it to the priest. The priest studied the shoe for a moment and said, "I've seen this before, or at least I've seen its twin. Come with me." He led the way into the priest's house, where he made a phone call. And half an hour later, Bob found himself sitting with the priest, looking at an old woman with the saddest eyes that he'd ever seen. Bob believed a lot in looking at people's eyes. They were the window to the soul. And this woman's soul was in torment. The priest handed her the shoe, and she looked at it, startled. And then she said, "Come with me." She led the way upstairs and into a small bedroom at the back. Bob looked and saw there was a child's bedroom. There were pictures of football players on the wall. Old pictures. There were books in a little bookcase. Children's books. He watched as the woman went over to a wardrobe, inside which were lots of boys' clothes. She reached to a shelf and took down a box. From the box, she produced a shoe, which is identical in colour, size and shape to the shoe he had found. The woman took the shoe and placed it with its twin on the floor at the side of the bed. Bob was about to speak when he noticed a glow emanating from the shoes. The shape of a young boy formed and turned his head towards the old woman. "I'm sorry for losing my shoe, Mummy," he said. And then he was gone. Later Bob learned that the child had died in an accident on the canal. He'd just celebrated his first communion and had gone for a walk and fallen in. The sadness disappeared from the woman's eyes that day.